This is the Wandering Mike.
Welcome everyone to the Wandering Mike. Today I'm here with Jake. Hey Jake, how's it going?
Hey Mike, I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Looking pretty good now.
Yeah, we've upgraded out of the previous place.
Well, Trent told everyone what the previous was anyway, so
Now we're in the penthouse, baby.
yeah, it feels pretty good.
Yeah,
Good
living the
upgrade.
high life.
All right. So before we get going, if you just quickly want to introduce yourself to the people, just a quick overview, what it is you're doing, what's your life been like, anything you want to share.
Okay, my name's Jake. Full name Jacob, but only my mum calls me that. Grew up in Christchurch. Went to study in Wellington for a few years. Studied sort of fine arts and photography. And now I'm living in Queenstown as a hiking guide. And I think that's a good summary, I guess.
Nice. Um, so the other question everyone gets asked in the beginning is, what is your dream? Or some people don't want to call it a dream, your main goal in life.
My main goal in life. I think to just be like a good dude, to just like leave the world a better place than I left it. But yeah, I don't know. I used to think it had to be some big grand thing, but I think as I'm getting older, I'm starting to realize that maybe just like being a positive influence on the people immediately around you is good enough for me. Or like, when I go to work, I make someone's day 2% better. I'll take that, just the small improvements, I guess.
Yeah. Um, well, that's a very noble goal, and a good goal to live your life by. Um, as we always tend to be philosophical, I'm going to take that though and ask a follow up question.
Sure.
So, in your opinion, what do you think a good dude or good gal
Yeah,
is?
right. Fair enough. Um, yeah, I don't know. That is a tricky one because obviously, like helping other people is makes you a good person. But like ultimately, if you think about it too much, you're always just serving yourself. Like, it's
Yeah,
like if you're helping someone else, you're doing that because that makes you feel good about your position in the world. But I still think that's better than helping yourself by taking advantage of someone, I think. I guess this is why I think probably spirituality or like a religion is a good metric, or like it's a good moral compass. It gives you a good, clear reason to be a good person. Whereas when you don't have that, you kind of just have to do it because it just seems like the right thing to do. But yeah, I think my goal would be to like help people that are struggling with stuff that I used to struggle with or slash am struggling with,
right.
or like younger kids and that were in similar positions that I was.
Feel like that's something important that you just mentioned there as well, because for people to really be on that way, because like you said before, maybe for a long time you wanted to accomplish something great,
Yeah,
and that's relatively easy. Don't get me wrong; it's
sure.
not easy for everyone to get famous, but it's like easy to create something and then put it out in the world. But I
Yeah,
think it's way harder to live in a way that serves other people and that
yeah,
really like helps them. And what you just said, basically, you need a lot of self-awareness for that as well,
yeah,
to first acknowledge and accept I'm also going through some stuff, and
yeah,
I'm basically probably, and that's life, always going
yeah,
through stuff and always trying to having your own personal journey as well.
yeah, yeah. I think I get like it's also easy to say this stuff, but it's like I'm still more often than not caught up in my own bullshit and not really like fully able to give in a way that I'd like to. But that's just the game.
Yeah. And another super interesting thing actually that you said, um, because one, it coincides with another question I'm gonna ask you anyway, so I
Yeah,
might as well do that now.
hit me, Mike.
So that is there a spiritual, religious, or philosophical belief that you basically base your life off of and that helps you your life?
Mm. Yeah, I would say that I'm a spiritual person, but I wouldn't put it into like one religion. I think for me, the most spiritual, s- the times that I've felt the most like spiritually connected has been like hiking and like by myself. I find for me that really makes me feel, 'cause for me, spirituality is realizing that we're not like, I think in the modern world, it's really easy to be like, I'm a human being and I've just been plopped in the world. And it's easy to forget that like we're very much entwined with it and like we come from the world. I think in the modern world, it's easy to forget this. So, yeah, for me, my spirituality is trying to remember that connection and that sort of we're all interconnected. And I also think that like there is definitely a spiritual element to the world, but I think our brains are too small to fully comprehend it anyway. So
Mm,
I don't know. I think like religion and like Christianity and all that stuff, I think they all are sort of trying to get at the same idea and they put it into stories and they write it down to try feel like, okay, if I can understand this thing, therefore I have more of a grasp of it. But I think it's an impossible thing to grasp. I think you just have to trust and sort of, yeah, I don't know, in some sort of feeling. I haven't. Trying to figure it out, I guess, and I do that through. I really like Buddhism, philosophy of Buddhism. I try to learn. I know nothing about it, but I try to learn about it where I can. Listen to a lot of Alan Watts. Are you familiar with
oh yeah,
Alan Watts?
yeah, he's
Yeah,
a great guy.
massive fan of Alan
Yeah.
Watts. I've got one of his books. I think it's called Out of Your Mind, and I just
Mhm.
listened to that like I probably listened to it like 3 or 4 times,
Oh wow.
and I just, yeah, a lot of good stuff in that book, and that was probably the beginning of my spirituality was listening to Alan Watts.
Yeah, Alan Watts definitely, for anyone who's listening as well, is a
Yeah.
great starting point
Yeah,
to
for sure.
just like really look beyond a lot of things and
Yeah.
really get into. And because a lot of people know this about myself, I enjoy reading. I read a lot, but I
Mhm.
have to say, I never read anything of his stuff, and the only time I consumed his stuff was on YouTube when there
Yeah.
was excerpts of him
Yeah, yeah,
talking and speaking.
yeah.
So might have to check out his books as
Yeah,
well.
he's a pretty entertaining dude, and he reads his books. So, like,
Oh, he reads his own
yeah,
books.
he's got a pretty unique voice and way of some of his books I think are just like lectures. I just listen
Right.
to it on Audible, because I'm like a very slow reader, so I'd prefer to like listen to stuff. Yeah, he's good, and he makes it light and like kind of funny. It's not like heavy
Yeah.
sort of literature and existential. What does the world mean? It's kind of just like a bit more fun and light, which I appreciate. I think that's a good way to go into spirituality and life, I guess.
Yeah. No, that was a great recommendation actually. Um, and a couple of things that I wanted to touch on
Mhm.
what you just said. Um, One, every time basically a Kiwi brings up nature, I have to say this
Yeah.
because having been in a bunch of countries already and traveled through a lot of continents, in New Zealand, the moment I arrived in Auckland, and I arrived in Auckland, which is the biggest city in New
Yeah.
Zealand, and even there, I immediately felt, wow, these people like have so much respect for nature. Like you can really feel that here in New Zealand that nature is, and I mean, probably it could always be done better, but with the comparison I have to say people really generally respect nature
Mhm.
and have a really good relationship to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think yeah, I talk about this with a lot of my customers at work when I'm guiding, and people always
Mm,
say like, "Oh, New Zealanders are so like environmentally conscious." But I think that's New Zealanders might disagree with me here, and maybe I'm full of shit, but this is just my opinion. I think part of that is like we were colonized later. People have been here for less time, and I
mm,
feel like the current generation in general has more focus on like protecting the environment. So I think,
yeah,
sure, New Zealand is good at that, but I think the reasons for this are we got colonized later, so less time to
that's
destroy
a
it. Am I allowed to swear?
yes,
Yeah, okay, cool.
yeah, you're all
Less time
good.
to fuck it up. And we're a smaller population. So I think these things, as much credit as we are due for looking after it, these factors I think play a role in that as well. So we can't take all the credit. But yeah, no, it's an interesting one. Yeah.
I mean, it definitely makes sense as well. That's always kind of interesting when you look at how countries in general like function. If you consider how young they still are.
Yeah.
Big example also being the United States, which compared to Europe, for example, is a relatively young country.
Yeah,
So
right.
it's always interesting to keep that aspect in mind
Yeah,
to
sure.
see like how things are working.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in terms of that. Yeah, that's true.
Um, so yeah, I do want to go more into that connection with nature though, because
Mm,
that is a topic that I'm also very uh, passionate about,
mm,
and that definitely, even though we just sang the praise to New Zealand, but
yeah.
even here, in this day and age, it's really hard to lose this
Mm,
connection. To really, I mean, whenever you're not on track, and I'm always in this bustling tourist town,
yeah, right.
so um, it's people, people, people. It's
Yeah.
work, 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 and um, yeah, so for modern people in their day-to-day lives, I
Yes.
feel like that's something that's just missing. So maybe if you want to talk about the specific importance again, like
Yeah.
what do you feel in nature? What does it give to you?
Well, it's yeah, having a sort of the spiritual connection is not all the time. And like when I'm working as a guide, it's less so because I'm more focused on uh sort of working. But I think it just comes down you could probably break it down to just being relatively practical. Like it's you're getting endorphins, you're getting fresh air from nature. I think, I don't know, maybe it could even be just placebo for me when
Mhm.
I'm walking through a forest and like breathing in the air feels good. In New Zealand, actually one of the great luxuries that we have here, and probably won't, I don't know how long that'll last, but you can drink the water without filtering it and it
Mm,
tastes like really good. Maybe I'm just being pretentious, but I reckon like some of the water on track, like tastes so good. And then when I come back to Queenstown, it just kind of tastes like chlorine. But
mhm.
yeah, they just like getting back to sort of more natural things. You're exercising, you're getting sunlight, you're not on your phone. You're just kind of stripping it back and being, yeah, sort of, I don't know, it's quite primal, I guess. You're just taking it back to some simple things, exercise. It's also like a wee bit meditative as well. Like I
Yeah.
think the times I feel the most sort of like like connected to the environment is when I'm by myself as well. I really enjoy hiking by myself. I think you can probably achieve that. Um, I think it's good to have solitude every now and again, regardless of whether it's in nature. I think nature is probably one of the easier places to achieve it. But I
Mm.
think for me anyway, I get like pretty overwhelmed with like I don't have a super high threshold to like being around people all the time. Like I love people, I love socializing. I get burnt out pretty quickly. I find that going for like a hike by myself, even just for like an overnight hike, just really recharges my battery. But I get that. I know for people that aren't into hiking, it seems like probably quite a big jump to suddenly do that by yourself. But just as long as you do a wee bit of research and cover, you know, basic safety, you got a map on your phone. Just start small. Start with simple walks that have everything marked and laid out, and it's not. It's really, it's a really approachable hobby. I think as long as just please be careful. Please do your research and homework. But yeah, get out in the bush.
Yeah, I love that because couple of times on the podcast we've been talking about the good effects that meditation has on people as
Yeah,
well. It's something yeah, I'm very passionate about as
yeah.
well, and something that I used to do way more when I was younger. Still do it off and on, but not as regularly as I
It's
probably
hard.
should.
It's hard to keep a regular practice for sure.
So yeah, with that being said, I think it's cool if someone can cultivate nature of hiking and cultivating that as their hobby because,
Yeah,
um, like I said, probably no one or not a lot of people are meditating, and then
yeah,
also not a lot of people are into hiking.
yeah,
So if you have that curiosity for nature, that already takes away part of it because
yeah,
hiking, in a sense, as we discovered, is a meditation,
yeah.
especially if you do it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely helps towards that mindfulness. And I actually did think that hiking was like an adequate replacement of meditation. But talking to like looking into Buddhists would disagree with that. And
Mm,
also I had a friend that was like super into meditating daily and he was like, no, like meditation is the only way to like achieve the
mm,
stillness, the whole thing's stillness. But
right.
um I do think that like hiking, for me so far, hiking has been more beneficial for my mental health than meditating is. But like I haven't put probably as much time into meditating. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're definitely entwined in cultivating good mental health.
Um, to speak to your point, though, I recently had someone on the podcast, and she was a meditation facilitator.
So
And when I asked her um, about what kind of practice she would recommend for beginners, she actually said a nature walk.
okay,
So,
sure. Yeah,
so
okay,
that's
cool.
what she says. She said like that's a good beginning and introduction
Mm,
to the. And we were talking, to be fair, mostly about mindfulness meditation because
yeah,
that's
yeah.
also the kind of meditation I mostly did.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there is different parts of meditation. Obviously,
Okay.
there's different practices, but
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the many of the different practices. The meditation that I do is just like focusing on my breathing,
yeah,
which I forget the name of. But that's the only meditation I've really tried to do.
that is pretty much. I don't know. There is probably a more specific name, but that
Yeah.
is basically mindfulness meditation, bringing
Okay.
it back to the moment,
Yeah.
breathing,
Yeah.
breathing out,
Yeah.
and there's also meditation that I know that is about grounding yourself and basically concentrating on your spine, about
Mm,
the energies inside your body, and
mm.
basically grounding mindfully the energies that exist in your body.
Yeah.
Um, and there is so many more. So it
Yeah.
is quite broad. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that that's actually what she said.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there
I have
is
to listen to that
definitely,
one.
yes, you should.
Yeah. Little marketing ploy for you there.
And
Yeah. 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 Ad read. Yeah.
um,
Do we get to do any ad reads?
no.
No.
Well,
I'll think of one for you.
unfortunately, we made it
Yeah.
to the penthouse, but we don't have
Yeah.
any
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
any sponsors yet.
That's okay. Next time.
Um, So yeah, basically with all that we already discussed, that finding yourself, finding basically the ideal is also a word I don't really like to use because everyone has their own associations with that, but finding
Sure.
a good way to live. Um, I want to take it back to something you said before we started to go off into the nature
Yeah.
discussion, which was that religion and spirituality, but I think even more so religion, because religion usually is more dogmatic than spirituality.
Mm,
They basically give you a list, they give you commandments, they give
yeah,
you
true.
like how to live your life.
Yeah.
Um, and like you said, if you don't really subscribe to one of those,
Mm,
it's basically a matter of finding these things for yourself.
mm.
And with that, I want to ask you, do you think there is something like an absolute truth? So do you think, obviously, or yeah, I don't want to take too much away from your answer, but
No,
it might
please, please.
it might be hard for humans to agree on that.
Yeah.
But do you think that in general, not judging as a human, there is something as this action is right or wrong? Do you think something like that exists?
That's a really good question. I think everything is subjective. And even that sentence is because some things aren't subjective, some things are definitive. I don't know.
Right.
You've broken my brain with that one. Are some things so you mean like are there some things out there that are objectively like wrong?
Yes. So I mean, like the but then again, there's always like situational, because in my head I was just gonna say easy one is murder.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then is it self-defense? And but
Sure.
yeah, so basically, and to make it even more absurd, so basically, even in a world where if I would murder you right now,
Please don't.
I will restrain myself.
Yeah, yeah. I saw you. I saw it in your eyes.
So if we were living in a world where I would kill you and 95% of the people would agree that it was good,
Yeah.
is there still, and then the question is, what is that like what is that
Mm,
being or that thing, but is there something that makes the action in itself wrong? That's kind of
yeah.
the question I'm asking.
I am gonna preface this with I don't know, but I will answer what I think. I do believe in like good and evil, and like
Right.
I don't believe in. I don't. Well, sorry, I don't follow Christianity, but like demonic stuff still scares the shit out of me. Like I
Mm.
really do feel like sometimes I can sense or feel like sort of I don't know evil does exist in the world. I wouldn't know how to fully pin it to things, but I don't know. Some people definitely have like demons in them. You know, like you watch these serial killer shows and stuff. It's like they're not. Um, yeah, they've got something in them, out something spiritually very, very corrupt, and I think that exists in the world. Um, and I think there's also very beautiful and kind people out there, and I think it's a bit of a balancing act between those two forces. But I don't know. It's a tricky because I like to believe in. This is another thing that I get stuck on is I love to believe in the idea of the middle way, which is a Zen philosophy of sort of
Right.
balance in everything. You know, like you can't have night without day. Kind of that's the you can't have up without down. And I like this and I agree with it. But then one thing you have to a pill you have to swallow with that is like you can't have happiness without suffering. And then you look at things like maybe this is a far out example, but you look at like, you know, genocides, it's like, do we really have to have that level of extreme in order
Yeah.
like what's the other side of that? So that's something that I get stuck on and like when I'm sort of looking at Buddhist philosophies and stuff. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but yeah, very good question. I don't know is my answer.
Well, the good thing about all these things is that we all just have opinions, and it's
Yeah.
just fun to
No,
theorize
it
about these
is
things.
it
And
is fun, and it's something I do think about, and I haven't found an answer that I'm happy with yet, but I'll keep looking. I'll get back to you once I figure it out.
I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
when I have the definitive, objective answer, I'll let you know, and the rest of the world.
I would love to know that one
Yeah,
because
yeah. It'd be a good one to know. Then it's like our conversation before, when you have a religion, these questions are sort of eliminated in a sense,
yeah,
and they're sort of taken care of, and that you have this advice from a higher power. But I think you can still get there by just following your moral compass, and like your moral compass just sort of also just comes from, I mean, the culture that I grew up in New Zealand is predominantly shaped by England, and
yeah.
with that comes Christianity. So even if I'm not Christian, a lot of my cultural values and stuff I'm still shaped by, sorry, still shaped by these, yeah, these cultural learned things that come from religion anyway. So I don't know, you can't escape it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great insight too. One that I mean, always knew in the back of my head as well, but that actually really came into fruition when I came to New Zealand
Yeah.
because I flew through Doha, Qatar, and
Okay.
I actually had to stop over there for 2 or 3 nights, because
Mm.
they are actually really smart in their tourism because they make it super cheap for you if you have a stopover to extend that stopover to multiple nights.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
they give you a really cost efficient incentive to
Uh,
spend your time there.
and did they ensnare you in their trap?
So I have to honestly say I didn't like the uh, city of Doha too much because it
Yeah.
was very, to me, very artificial. It felt
Okay.
very, it obviously was a city where everything worked, was
Yeah.
very efficient. Um, but it didn't really have an authentic feel to me
Okay. Yeah.
personally.
Sure.
I loved, again, to bring it back to nature, I loved
Yeah.
to be in the desert. I had did a
Ah,
day trip in the
interesting.
desert there,
Yeah.
and that was amazing. That was
Yeah.
really, really cool.
Yeah.
And it was almost a whole day. I did a sunset there, and
True.
that was very inspiring
Yeah. No,
too.
I've never been in the desert. I'll be curious to check it out. Do they? What's the religion then?
So it's a completely
Islam.
Islam Muslim country.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what I really found interesting there though is because um even though again I didn't like the city as a whole too much, I appreciated their museums. So they had a
Okay.
lot of museums, and I
Yeah.
checked them all out. And what I basically realized really hands on, because it was right in front of me, was they have a complete parallel culture to ours, because
Uh.
obviously it's a different language, it's a different
Yeah. Yeah.
religion. And even though it's a parallel culture, they have kind of the same things. There
Yeah.
was like books hundreds of years old of philosophical writings.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
books of how to live a righteous life, but they
Yeah.
were in um, Arabic, and they
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
with the Muslim culture as a backdrop. But
Yeah. Yeah.
so that's basically kind of our discussion is everything we're discussing more or less is the Western English speaking culture.
Yeah.
And we're basically, that's why I am personally so interested in languages,
Yep.
is to have those other windows and doors open and look into the Arabic
Yep.
teachings, the Sanskrit teachings, if we
Yeah.
bring it back to Buddhism,
Yeah.
the Chinese teachings,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all these things that, because of language barriers, we don't have
Yeah.
access to yet.
I think it's really important to keep an open mind, and like, even if you disagree with a culture or a religion, you should still educate yourself and be open minded to it. Like, I don't know. I think I was probably my attitude towards Islam before going to an Islamic country was probably pretty standoffish. And
Mm,
then I went to Indonesia and to Java,
Right.
and that's like 150 million people, 95% Islam. Um, and regardless of the religion, that some of the friendliest, nicest people I've ever met in my life. And so, like, yeah, I think that was a good eye opener for me. It's like I think it's really important, especially in this sort of what's going on in the world at the moment, is not to demonize someone for their make a judgment on a person based on how you interact with them face to face. I think don't get caught up in hating someone for their views and stuff before you've even met them. But that's a complicated one that is I haven't figured out either.
Well, I mean, I totally agree with you though,
Yeah,
because obviously on that scale that you were just talking about, it is quite difficult. But in a
yeah,
day to day, I think it is quite fair to say that we just lose out on a lot of opportunities if we, as we say, judge a book by its cover and
mm,
basically deny ourselves
yeah,
the conversation with someone just because of things that we assume of them.
yeah, yeah,
So I feel like a lot of interesting conversations. And again, I just call it teachings because we can learn from every single person around us. We can learn
yeah,
something. So we deny ourselves these teachings if we just don't listen to what a person has to say.
yeah, yeah. Well, it was like I had when I was traveling, I actually was on mushrooms, and this lady from Morocco decided that that was a good time to introduce herself to me, and she was
Mm,
Islam. And then she started trying to get into this conversation with it. She was like, "Oh, you probably hate me because because of my religion." I
right.
was like, I don't know you." You know, it's like I'm not gonna like.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, I might disagree with your some philosophies of that religion, but it doesn't mean that I am gonna like hate you as a person. I think that is a really important thing that we need to start understanding is it's like sometimes you're not going to agree with someone philosophically, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you have to convince them of your point or vice versa. Like the world is so complicated and crazy. Like the fact that we're able to communicate and have a conversation is a miracle. So see let's just try and make it work. But I don't know. I am like a little nervous talking about this because I have a very privileged background and I don't know. I've never been in a country that's had wars, so I have no idea what that's like. But yeah, I don't know. That's my that's the philosophy I'm trying to and take on anyway.
Um, just to make you feel better though, and I appreciate because again, it comes back to self awareness that
Mm,
not a lot of people have. You even saying you had a privileged background
mm,
like shows that you understand the situation, and that's also something I sometimes struggle with. It's like, can I even give my opinions? But then I just feel
yeah,
like,
sure.
well, I don't give a fuck. It's my opinions, you
Yeah,
know.
it's your
So
opinion that still has the right to exist.
so if people want to take something away from it, that's good. If
Yeah,
people disagree with it and bring forth an argument that maybe is then beneficial to other people, that's good as
yeah,
well. So
sure, sure.
um, that's why I'm just always very keen and happy just to have conversations
Yeah,
and just
exactly.
swap out opinions, theories, and
Yeah. I found
all that
that
stuff.
that sort of philosophy really benefited me traveling as well. I think obviously I don't want to go into it too much because it's probably not what this conversation should go towards. But like so many Israeli people traveling at the moment, and so many, and like when you're meeting people from all these different religions and cultures, a lot of which I don't understand very well. So I'm not going to go in there and start like telling people my political opinions and views. Like my goal is to like try and understand your perspective and where you're coming from, and then yeah, I feel like a lot of people on in New Zealand might have opinions about that side of the world where it's like I just don't know, and people might listening might think that this is wrong and that you should, but I don't. I feel like unless you have a very good understanding and knowledge of those cultures and in that religion. I just don't know how helpful it is for us to have an opinion. 100% support people that are struggling. But yeah, I don't know. It's just such a confusing area. But yeah, anyway, while I was traveling recently, and this is why it's on my mind, is I was just running into those conversations a lot and a lot of difficult conversations and learning to navigate that and form my own opinion when I didn't. I just tried not to form an opinion when I didn't understand
Yeah.
the issue. But it's also, it's so complicated. There's so much tension there. I'm trying really hard to speak without saying the wrong things. But yeah, I feel like there's some insight there and sort of,
I mean, obviously, that's not what I try to say, that everyone should now just have an opinion and say, this country is bad, these people
yeah,
is bad. But
yeah,
I feel on the theoretical level that we're speaking right now,
yeah,
where it's rather philosophical rather than finger pointing,
yeah,
I
sure.
feel like there we can always have a conversation as people, and we can always
Yeah.
kind of have a theoretical talk about these things.
And I think having that conversation is always healthy. It's always beneficial.
And maybe just to tell a quick anecdote towards what you just kind of hinted at, and then we're gonna move on.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good idea. Otherwise, we could go down a serious rabbit hole. Right?
but yeah, it's just also on a big scale, these things always look more severe than they actually are, because, and again, it's a weird insight because all this was happening in Portugal and Lisbon where I was working.
Yeah,
But our whole friend group was so diverse. Like we had Hamza, who was from Morocco.
yeah,
We had Gal, who was from Israel.
yeah,
And like when all that shit started there, we were currently in a soccer tournament where
yeah.
all of
Right.
us were playing in the team, and we were making it almost to the final. We lost in the yeah, we lost in the quarterfinals. Actually, a
um,
game where all of us agree we should not have lost.
yeah,
Um, no, but all I want to say is, you know, we didn't care. None of
yeah,
us cared. We still had a great time, and all of us, including those two, are great friends until
yeah,
today. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, just to show that side of humanity as
yeah.
well.
I think everyone's trying. I genuinely believe that everyone is trying to do what they think is right, and I feel like knowing that can be helpful. We just haven't figured out how to make it work yet.
Yeah. Um, but a topic that I do want to talk a little bit more about that
Mm,
you mentioned is your travels.
okay.
And I don't know if I told you yet, but people that listen to my episode on the podcast probably know that I also, during my studies, spent 1 year in Indonesia,
Oh, true.
in Java.
In Java. Okay,
Yeah,
that's
I
crazy.
studied in Tangerang, which is like the suburbs of Jakarta.
Okay, okay.
So, yeah, with that, I'm just very interested where you've been in Java. What have you seen there?
Well, it was actually we did like a bike packing trip. So
Oh,
me and my two best friends, we flew into Jakarta with our bicycles
right.
and then we cycled from Jakarta to Bali with a few.
Oh, cool.
I have to admit that we hired a shuttle a couple times to get over some of the volcanoes. The gearing for my bike was not cut out for climbing volcanoes, but
Hmm.
I think we still biked like a good 1,000 kilometers and
Oh,
give
wow.
and also I can't remember most of the names of the places I went through because I was being lazy and let all my friends do the navigating. So it hasn't
Hmm.
stuck in my brain. But we basically just did like a line through from Jakarta through sort of we went down south from Jakarta, sort of through the middle, and then down to like the southern coast. Biked along there and sort of cut back in and then down the middle again. Um, and for me, that was the most culture shock I've ever had in my life. Like I'd been to Europe and America before then, which is not a huge culture shock from New Zealand. Like we've taken a lot of their culture already. Java is fully different culture, come different origins, different religion, different
Yeah.
everything, and I loved it. Like the first night cycling there at dusk, and it's foggy, and the Predator call. The Predator call, for people that don't know, is like It's a Islamic thing where the churches, some guy hops on the mic, goes like, "Wow, and you can hear it from like three different temples at the same time. I felt like I was in Dune. I was like, I'm on a different planet right now, which I loved that feeling of seeing something very alien to me. But yeah, as I said before, I found the people in Java just like super friendly. I don't know how much of that is because they've never seen a white guy on a bicycle before in the
Well,
middle of nowhere. They're like, what the? I mean,
to be fair, that is something we definitely experienced as well. Because I was there
yeah,
with I think we were 5 people in total,
yeah,
all studying.
yeah,
And when we went to the more rural areas,
yeah.
we were celebrities.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. Exactly. It's
yeah,
like, I'm just Jake from Christchurch, but you're treating me like a celebrity. Yeah, it was not good for my ego.
no, but that's definitely something we realized. And for me, it was okay, but my friend, he was tall and blonde. So,
Mm,
like, the,
yeah,
white guy, and then
yeah, yeah.
everyone was like, "Can we take a photo with you?"
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah. Everyone wants to take a photo. It's crazy. My friend George, he did another bike packing trip in India, and he said it was even more. I was going to
oh,
say
really?
worse, but it's not worse. It's just
No, it's
more. um,
yeah.
they love in India. They love taking selfies with the
Alright.
white guys. But yeah, it was really interesting. I think it wasn't a country that was really on my radar. The only reason we did it is 'cause my friend George was trying to cycle. He just cycled the east coast of Australia, and he wanted to do
Mm.
eventually do the whole world. And so Indonesia
Oh,
was like
cool.
next from there. So it was kind of just like we just randomly went there, but I'm so glad I did because I probably wouldn't have picked it. Like it just, but yeah, super interesting country. Bule, bule is what we would be called
The
by
the
Indonesian people.
bullet,
Bule
yeah,
means
bullet.
foreigner. Uh, yeah, everyone was super lovely, and the other thing that was a big culture shock for me is in New Zealand, like as we were saying before, in New Zealand we're very privileged. People take care of their environment. In Java, there is no infrastructure for looking after rubbish. People are burning their rubbish on
Yes.
the side of the road, they're chucking it in the river. And I got kind of uh maybe nihilistic's not the right word, or pessimistic. I was like, well, it's all good and well us being like clean and green here. Like it's good to show the world to lead by example. But we're 5 million and Java is 150 million people that uh don't have the resources to look after their rubbish. And so it kind of got me thinking that in order for the world to recover from all the rubbish and pollution that we've created, there's going to have to be like a shift in technology or like someone's going to have to invent something drastic. Otherwise, I just
Right.
think that we're kind of just we're on this path and kind of locked into it.
No, that's a great insight, actually. And when I say these things about New Zealand, and
Mm,
when I have these conversations with people off the microphone,
yeah,
Indonesia is, I think, the one example I tell them the most
yeah,
because
right.
um, we were, and I just forgot the Indonesian term for it, but they have like east of Jakarta, there's like 1,000 islands. So
Yeah,
there's like 1,000 little islands. It's not 1,000, but they just
yeah,
call it 1,000 islands,
yeah,
but it's a lot of islands.
yeah. Maybe like a couple hundred.
Yeah, something like that. And we actually, because it's not a very touristy place, but it's
No.
a very visited place by the people of Java. So they go there on their
Ah,
weekends. So
okay.
our local friends, they told us you have to check out these
Yeah,
islands, and we went there and we actually had a great time. It was so beautiful,
yeah,
but every because you're in uh, on islands surrounded by the ocean, and you see these beautiful islands, this beautiful ocean, but then you also see plastic everywhere,
yeah,
and to them it's normal. To them,
Mm,
it doesn't take away from the beauty, but for us, it was just so irritating, like, to
yeah,
see loads and loads of trash just being everywhere. So
yeah,
and also me, having studied that's what I studied in Germany, and then obviously also studied while I was in Indonesia there,
yeah.
was environmental technology.
Okay.
So, seeing, that part of their culture in more detail,
Yeah,
was yeah, I agree with you, was
yeah,
very discouraging to see
yeah,
the state, of where, the technology was at
yeah,
that point, and again, that was, like, 5 or even 6 years ago now.
yeah, yeah.
Maybe it has changed, but
Yeah, maybe.
maybe it hasn't. I I'm just saying I can only, say for when I was there,
Yeah.
which was, like, 5 to 6
No,
years ago.
I'm afraid to say, well, I was there a year or 2 ago. It was still pretty dirty.
Yeah,
So yeah, you need a couple of intervention pretty quick.
no pressure, right?
Yeah, yeah, just in the next few years will be good. Thanks, mate. Eh,
On it.
yeah, yeah.
No, but yeah, so that's also something, yeah, that people need to be aware,
Well,
definitely.
yeah, the thing is like, I've, like, no, uh when I say this, like, I hope Indonesian people don't think I'm having a go at them, like, it's absolutely out of their control, like, it is there's just nothing in place. And, like, a lot like, Indonesia's not, uh we looked it up, it's not third world, it's, like, second world, or
It
it's in,
is
like,
supposed
its
to be a
own.
developing country, yeah.
Yeah, it's like when people are just trying to get their next meal, they're not worried about where the plastic from their shit goes, they're just trying to
Yeah,
survive, and fair enough. I wouldn't be worried about, like, my rubbish if I was hungry and just trying to, like, make a living, or
yeah,
so, yeah, I don't know, that just I kinda just accepted that that is what it is, and then have a new came back with a new appreciation for, like, how clean New Zealand is. And it's just, like, it's just such a luxury, and it's just very lucky by circumstance. Yeah, that.
true that.
True that.
No, definitely.
Amen.
Um, something I wanna ask you though, because you mentioned you biked to Bali, so you actually made it
Mm.
to Bali, or you just, went all the way to the East Coast?
We spent, like, a week in Bali, so we did all the pedaling, and then we, like, kinda partied in Bali. Well, tried to. I'm not really a very good partier. I mean, I like to get drunk, but I don't like have you been to Bali?
Yes.
Did you go to Finn's Bar?
I also didn't party a lot while I was
It's
there.
like basically it's like this big club, and there's like restaurants and a big swimming pool and like 3 DJs, and
Mm,
I mean, it was fun because I was there with my friends, and but like that kind of stuff. I didn't really like Southern Bali, like that party area. It's just
yeah.
like I've come, 6 hours by plane to meet an island full of Australians. No offense, actually, no offense to Australia. Get out of there, leave it alone. Um, no, sure, if you enjoy that, then, like, good on you, and, like, the surfing there's amazing, so that's awesome, but for what I'm trying to experience traveling, that's not what I'm looking for, so I just didn't really enjoy it. Northern Bali, though, if you're more introverted like me, is beautiful. It's very quiet, but there's no surf.
I could imagine you liking Uber quite a lot
Yeah,
into it.
Uber was nice. I- I'm struggling to even sort of remember differentiate them now, but, like, I enjoy my time in Java more. But I
Mm.
imagine someone that likes, like, Southern Bali would hate going to Java. They'll be like, "What is this?"
I kinda like that just from me saying, "Did you make it to Bali?" You already answered the question I wanted to ask afterwards
Or
because, that's basically if people think about Indonesia,
yeah,
it's Bali.
yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, as you are the living evidence,
yeah.
you can just, tell the people that Bali isn't Indonesia, right? Like, the
No,
people in
Bali's not
Java
Indonesia.
they it's a very different way,
Yeah. It's a
especially in
different
the
culture
places
as
where it's
well.
so touristy, like you
Yeah,
said in southern Bali. It's
absolutely. Yeah, I think if you're looking at going to Bali or Indonesia, yeah, it just depends what you want to do. Because what was interesting for me on a religious aspect is Indonesia. I'm gonna get the stat. These stats aren't correct, but they're ballpark. Indonesia, Java is 95% Islam, and then 150 million people, and then I think Bali is like 85% Hindu or something.
right.
And like you take an hour ferry from Java to Bali, and the vibe shift is like immediate. Like Hinduism is far more uh, uh, philosophically, it's I think is a wee bit more laid back than Islam is. Islam's I think tends to be more strict. Also, the government is Islamic, so that is
Mm,
entwined. I think that's why Bali is the way it is because Hinduism
right.
is the sort of backbone of the culture, and it was just really interesting seeing that shift to there in the Hinduism, things being a bit more relaxed. Yeah, Bali's not for me. I had the same thing you've been to Thailand, right? Have
Yeah.
you been to like Kopangan?
I have
Kopangang?
Kopangan.
I didn't hate it. Just compared to the rest of Thailand, I just didn't enjoy it. But also like so many people love that, but that's just like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should have gone there longer, but I definitely enjoyed the like quieter, less touristy island.
I must say for me, yeah, I mean, just around Kopangan, there's like so many other islands
Yeah.
where you can get the same feels
Yeah.
without the tourists. But basically, the order I did Thailand was first trip because we were in Indonesia for a year. We had a lot of chances to just do long weekend trips, do some 1 week off of uni here, 1 week
Yeah.
off there. So we actually got to travel quite a lot into Southeast Asia
Oh,
because it's
nice.
pretty cheap to get around from
Yeah.
Jakarta to all these other places.
That's awesome.
And very first trip we did was on Phuket,
Mm,
and we loved it.
yeah.
It was stunning to see the cliffs
Yeah.
and the beaches as well, but
Mm,
also all this side, like the cliffs, Kopangan, and all that stuff. And then on the second trip, we did Bangkok, and we also loved it. It was a
yeah.
very
I loved
nice
Bangkok.
multicultural city.
Yeah.
And then the third trip was into the north,
Mm,
was Chiang Mai.
mm.
And that's when I realized all of Thailand was cool, but the northern, the jungle part is where I fell in love with it.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thing. Yeah, because I started in the southern places and I only didn't go north. I was meant to go north earlier, but there was like lots of flooding and stuff. So I went
Um,
south and then I went through Bangkok twice, and both of which times I was like, I'm gonna stay here for 2 days.
mm,
And both times I ended up staying there like 5 days to a week. And I was just I don't know. And
yeah.
I surprised myself because of how introverted and sort of claustrophobic I get in those environments. I loved Bangkok. It was just like I think because it was so different and just like just walking through this web of like buildings and cities
Yeah.
where you just never there's always some little it just amazes me how many little lives are going on. Like you just walk past and poke your head in and there's a whole family eating dinner and watching TV and that's just happening on a scale. I think people's lives are a lot more on display there as well. In New Zealand, we kind of picket fence and closed curtains. Like you don't really, everyone sort of
Mm,
lives a bit more segregated. Whereas that was just like this bustling. Yeah, no, I love Bangkok. If anyone is thinking about going to Bangkok, do it. But don't go to Koh San Road. I mean, go to Koh San Road and have a look. But I think,
yeah.
yeah, that's not a lot of people that I met traveling were like, "Oh, I didn't like Bangkok." I was like, "Well, what did you do?" Like,
Cause
"Oh, I went to Koh San Road, got fucked up for a couple of days, and then left because they'd had a shit time." Go find some restaurants and go look at some temples. And
yeah.
if you're not templed out by then, I got pretty templed out.
I think I would agree, but I would also disagree because
Sure.
it's still always a vibe to be
Yeah.
in there and to feel that energy that undeniably is there, like
Yeah,
if you
yeah.
walk into it. But it's also undeniable that a lot of them look
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
it's a lot of the same going on.
Yeah. I think because 'cause I've done Cambodia and I spent have you been to
I haven't made it to Cambodia.
I
What's
just did it because I was coming from Vietnam, so it was like I just
mm,
bust through, but I did Siem Reap, which is like has Angkor Wat and all those ancient
yeah.
temples, and I spent 3 days driving around on a scooter trying to see as many temples as I could. So by the time I got
Mm.
to Thailand, I was like, "No." But no, this yeah, I think doing a research on the temples because some of them are, like, pretty unique and pretty special. Like, some of them have, like, cool hikes that you do have to do to get to them, which is another cool thing of, like, Buddhist philosophy of, like, paying respect to Buddha by having to exert yourself to get to the higher place or heaven or whatever. So I liked that.
Yeah, I don't know if you because we talked about Chiang Mai
Mm,
before
mm,
and Pai
yeah,
in the mountains in the jungle,
yeah,
and there they have a Buddha high up, and they have the same thing in Phuket as well,
yeah,
where the Buddha is always placed on the top of a hill or mountain. I don't know if you
yeah,
can call it mountain, but like
yeah, yeah,
a rather steep hill. So yeah, I always when I made the journey up there, as you said, that's what I
yeah,
kind of feel like. It's you gain the right to be with the Buddha by
yeah,
making your way
yeah.
up there.
But there must be some sort of innate thing within humans that feels like climbing mountains is like a spiritual thing. Because it's like when I'm hiking, like even when there's not a Buddha at the top of the hill, people like to climb hills, and
Yeah,
even in Tibetan Buddhism, top of the hill is very sacred and very much a religious pursuit. So yeah, the Buddhists have definitely tapped into something there. Yeah.
but yeah, as you said, Cambodia. That's actually the one country that I didn't get to see out
Mm,
of all of them because I've been to Laos briefly, I've been to Vietnam, and then obviously Thailand.
yep.
I've been to Malaysia, been to Singapore as well. Um, so did you actually get to see Uncle Wat?
Yeah, I saw Angkor Wat, but it was actually not the most. That was like it's one of the wonders of the world, and so it was super busy.
Right.
But so you like buy a Angkor Wat symbolizes basically an ancient city. So the city itself is like huge. Like I hired a scooter and it would take like maybe take like 20 minutes to drive across it
Oh,
on a
wow.
scooter. So it's huge. The
Yeah.
wall itself is like 20 meters. There's a wall that goes around this giant city in a square.
Mm.
I'm not going to do this justice with my words. Like you have to do some research into this if you are curious. It's fascinating. But the top of the wall is like 20 meters wide. So you can take a bicycle and cycle along the top of the wall as
Mm.
well and go around. And there's also these massive man-made lakes. I'm not normally into archaeology or all this sort of stuff, but it is just like mind blowing how they managed to construct all these things without the technology we have now. But yeah, also Cambodia reminded me of Java in the sense that the people were like so lovely, and they've been through hell. Like when I was there, my
Right.
one of the main things I did was just like learn about they had like a genocide there, Pol
Mm.
Pot, and
Mm.
so I just did my I just sort of was learning about that. It was same in Vietnam. Both like the history there wasn't really taught to me in school, like about those wars and stuff. So, yeah, that was most of my trip was sort of learning that history in Cambodia. I was only there for like 7 days. Yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think that ties into the whole parallel culture thing again because um, it's the same for Europe as well. We don't really. That's not what we learn in school. We learn
Mm,
history about the European history.
mm,
obviously the world wars, but we don't really get into the history of Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
We also, just to say, don't go into the detail about Australia and New Zealand at all,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
history of those countries. And I don't know too much about Cambodia and Vietnam to this day,
Yeah.
but it was interesting in Indonesia because we actually had to learn Indonesian history, which was
Yeah,
super
right.
cool.
Yeah.
And also, again, super eye opening as a European with all
Yeah.
the colonization also going on there in the
Yeah. Yeah.
southeast of Asia. And yeah, it's just every time you acquire more knowledge, it just expands
Yeah.
your whole view on everything pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah. That's why I really like travel because I did not well academically in school. And um I'm not actually I don't think I'm actually particularly unintelligent. I think a lot of it was sort of I'm dyslexic, so that didn't help. And also I just wasn't interested in the way that it was being taught. And I found that when I've gone traveling, I'm like, I want to learn. I start to try learn the language. Like I want to learn about the history. Like I'm pursuing all this knowledge that in high school I was more like I just didn't care. And I think I know for some people, just like going out and traveling is like a really good way to just like actually learn something. Like I feel like I've learned so much valuable stuff and even like people skills that you learn when you travel, like how we are talking before about like understanding different cultures and religions. Like if you're only learning about these things through pen and paper, it's only going to get you so far in terms of like how you deal with people. I think that's a really valuable thing that you can get from traveling as well.
Definitely. I feel like travel can be a teacher of so many things.
Mm,
One, also with what we touched on, also being into yourself. I don't know if you experienced that as well, but on
mm,
travel, you
yeah,
also learn a lot of things that maybe you weren't exposed to back in
yeah,
your natural environment and that you can just
yeah.
learn by going to specific places.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Solo traveling has been really good for me as well. I think the way I explain it to like my friends is that when you travel with friends, you probably have a lot more fun and laughs. But when you travel by yourself, you definitely grow more. Like you get put out of your comfort zone way more regularly.
Yeah.
And I think to me that was good because like when you've got your friends there, you kind of just like don't I just would like hang out with them and like not
Yeah.
socialize. When I was by myself, you have to put yourself out there a bit more. And then also when you get lost or when you fuck something up, you have to figure that out for yourself, which I do a lot.
Figuring out things that is
And
not
getting lost. Yeah.
right. Um, well, I honestly feel like whatever topic we talk about, we could talk about for hours.
Yeah, totally.
But I also feel like we have a pretty good episode as it is.
Yeah,
And we talked
sweet.
about a lot of cool stuff. And I love that we got your travels in Southeast Asia in there because that's something
Yeah.
I always love to talk about.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So, yeah, well, Jake, thank you for doing this.
No problem.
It was super cool.
You
Nice.
finally got me in here. I was a little shy about coming on. I don't know what that was. I just have an aversion to I think sometimes socially I get like have an aversion to these situations. I was like, I don't know. Like I love intimacy is not the right word. I guess we're being intimate. But like, I don't know, these kind of situations, like I love this. This has been great.
Like a genuine conversation,
Yeah,
like a
but like
very
for some reason prior to that conversation, I have like an adverse like pull away from it. I don't know what it is, but I'm working on that. I don't know. It's a weird sometimes when things I think with conversation as well, when people try to talk to me about stuff beyond surface level, I like try to turn it into a joke or like try and get away
right.
from some just like weird toxic masculinity thing that I need to work on. I don't know.
And
But thanks for getting me in here.
of course,
Yeah.
and those last words should inspire a lot of people because I think you're not the only one. All right.
Yeah.
Stop turning things into jokes and
Yeah.
actually have these meaningful conversations.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. And I think it's always the anxiety always only exists in your head. Like the anxiety is only pre doing the thing. Like as soon as we sat down here and started talking, like all those things that I was worried about, like, got gone.
Right.
It's just the mind playing tricks on you. So always, yeah.
All right,
Don't know
man.
what the advice is there, but there's something in there.
There was a lot of everything in there.
Yeah, so
All right, man. Thank you again.
thank you,
And
sir.
with that, bye everyone.
Peace out.